Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and as usual, we got a good one for you today. Today, we listened to some stories from Matt Rege. Matt is a listener who actually reached out to me and said, man, I got some crazy stories for you, and boy, does he. First off, he's a stuntman in Hollywood, so that's pretty crazy. And then, of course, that means that he is from California, and we all know California's full of crazies, and he has some crazy stories for us today. So I don't want to steal too much of his thunder, of course, but I want to thank Matt for reaching out and coming on the podcast to share his stories. Beyond that, guys, I want to make sure that you guys get out there and review my podcast. Give it 5 stars. Share it with someone. We're trying to grow this thing as much as we can so we get more great storytellers like Matt reaching out to create more episodes for you all. So please go do that, whether it's on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever it is. Just go out there, quick review. I'll say 5 stars, but give it however many you think it's worth and a review, just so that more people can find us. Beyond that, guys, let's go ahead and kick this thing off and let Matt tell you some of his stories. Thank you. All right, Matt, welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast, brother. How are you?
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me. I've been listening to you all week, and I'm stoked to be on here.
Hey, that's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. Maybe that's why there was a jump in my numbers this week. I'm just just kidding.
Hopefully.
But man, it's great. You reach out to me. I say this every time. I love it when people reach out to me and say, "Man, I got some stories you got to hear." So thank you, Matt, for doing that. I'm really excited to hear your stories. You didn't even try and tease me with a lot of people like, here, I want to tell you this. I want to tell you that. I'm like, oh, stop. I don't want to know anything. I want to hear it all fresh on the podcast. And you were just like, I'm coming in hot. So thanks, man, for reaching out. But why don't we kick this thing off right and let you just like introduce yourself to the folks that are listening?
Yeah, so I'm Matt Rege. I'm 37 years old. I started hunting when I was 30, which is kind of a random midlife choice to make, but I'm very glad I did it. So I'm from California, Southern California. And until 2014, I worked on movies as a stuntman.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, continuously. And then after that, I kind of ran my passion into dirt bikes. So we did a lot of dirt bike racing. No, I was never super good, but I thought I was pretty good, you know.
You're having fun.
So so I ended up meeting a lot of people, and all my buddies are still pros. They race all over the world and such. So I loved doing that. And then we were training for a big race, and I broke my arm. And I kind of slowly started to step back from dirt bikes and started to get more into hunting stuff and kind of fell in love with it. So to go back on the stunt thing, I had a business partner. We were running around doing stunt choreography and stunt stuff for all the movies. And he hit me up one day. He's like, hey, let's go dove hunting. And I was like, nope, don't want to do that. And he's like, no, let's go. He's like, absolutely. I was like, don't really care for it. I'm racing dirt bikes, you know, like I just want to ride dirt bikes kind of thing. He's like, no, let's go. And finally I was like, all right, you know, so we're up at 3 a.m. like to go hunting. And yeah, that kind of kicked off like my hunting career kind of thing. And I could just kind of fell in love with it. Yeah, not so much dove hunting that I fell in love with, but just being out with the buddies and, you know, because as far as
was your buddy that invited you, was he like a hunter before that, or was he kind of just like new to it as well?
No, so he was big dove hunter, like just he was the kind of guy that would just sit around a pond and wait for him to fly in type of thing. Okay. So he invited me out, and I thought I kind of developed dove hunting as a beer drinking sport is kind of what I thought it was, you know. So I slowly transitioned into some other birds like dove and chukar, and then I'm the guy that's always down to do something like, you know, my brother just went indoor skydiving. I go, yep, I got to be the best at that. So I've been trained to do some indoor skydiving. So anything I'm trying to learn, you know. So one day I put on my Facebook, I go, hey, I want to go bull. I want to learn how to ride a bull, like bucking bulls, you know. And I'll just anything I could get my I think it's from the stunt world, just the adrenaline from that.
Yeah.
So it was funny because this girl writes me, she goes, I got a place for riding bulls on Friday, and this was like a Tuesday. I'm like, oh man, like I didn't know it was gonna be like that quick, you know. So long story short, we go ride some bulls, and I was not very good at it. Got on a bunch of bulls, and I met my other buddy. It was a good friend of mine now, pretty much like my brother, and he was there. He used to ride professionally bulls. Yeah. So he goes, hey, let's go deer hunting. And you know, I was like, yeah, let's absolutely, you know, like he's cool. I'm like, it should be a good time. So starting off the hunting career, we went out there, and it was 2015, I think, was my first like deer hunting. and I
Okay.
sucked at it. I was so bad. Like I had
We
the
all do.
worst, yeah, the worst backpack. Like I had this, I don't even know what pack it was. It was probably like a hand-me-down pack. I had a
A
Bushmaster.
JanSport or something,
Yeah,
like got your
yeah,
books in
something
it.
like that. I had like a Bushmaster 30-06. Like I didn't even know how to sight it in. Just and I ended up missing 2 deer that year. And I was super bummed. Like I was like, no, like I'm not the guy that's gonna be bad at something. I'm like, I gotta learn how to do this. I'm not gonna do that again. I'm not gonna be awful. So then that year I was like, I studied. I was like, I could buy a bow, I could hunt a month earlier. I studied ballistics, minutes of angle, long range. I bought a new rifle. Not that, gear is everything, but I was hardcore into it.
Yeah.
And so the next year we go a little bit, me and my buddy, and I was like, I just got to break off and solo hunt a little bit. So to start off, my first story is my first deer kill. I'm out there solo in this spot where we go. It's a zone, and I'm just out there by myself. I studied a bunch of butcher videos and stuff. So I'm hiking around this place, and it's so flat, like so flat. And I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I am like awful at this. I'm just
Yeah.
walking around, and finally I find this little mountain. It was probably 100 foot, and I was like, let me climb this, and I'm gonna glass a little bit. But
Yeah.
there's
Couple
no
quick
other hills.
questions.
Yeah,
This is in California, correct?
California. Yeah, I've only shot animals in California and Arizona. That's it.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
And then man, I had another question, but I'm drawing a blank on it right now. Oh, blacktail, mule deer, what kind of deer are you hunting?
mule deer. Yeah, I've never got into
Okay.
the blacktail thing.
Okay.
They're a little like Central Coast up there, but man, is it hot to hunt. There, you can hunt them right now, but it's too hot for me. Like it's brutal.
All right.
But
All right, continue. Sorry, I just wanted to ask a couple quick ones to help set the stage.
yeah, no worries. So I'm sitting up on that hill glassing, and I see some does down below, 200 yards out, and I'm like, man, like I'm glassing them for a while, and I don't see any bucks. So I'm whatever, I got a bow. I'm gonna learn how to stock up on these deer that I just recently found. So I stalk down in there, and I'm trying to sneak in, not really knowing anything. I'm sneaking down, and I'm 60 yards from where these does were, and I'm just looking in there, and there's this big, tall juniper bush. And I look under the juniper bush with my binoculars 60 yards away, and I could see an antler laying on the ground. Like I'm like, oh, that buck's dead. He was like sideways with his snout in the ground. I was like, oh, he's dead. I could
Huh.
barely see his tine and like his nose. So as I'm watching him, he picks up his head, and I'm like, oh man, like insane. Like that buck's alive. And I was like, man, maybe like if those does walk this way, maybe he's going to get up and feed the way he's like the direction he is. So sure enough, he stands up, walks out, and I shoot him with my 30-06 at 60 yards. He was a 140 4x4. And
Nice.
I'm
Very
like,
nice, man.
and I dropped him in his tracks, and I was like, insane. So that's my first buck. So it's just a short story, but that's the first one I killed. So
That's interesting. I don't know if I've ever thought about them like putting their heads down. I don't, like you said, his like snout was in the ground and his antlers on the
yeah,
ground. I just always assume that their heads are up, and maybe I just don't know. But like I have a game camera up right now, and it's a cell cam, and I got 30 pictures of an elk, and its head was up all night long. It never laid down. So I wonder what was going on with your deer there. But
yeah. So
super interesting.
in the last 5 years, I've never seen a buck with his antlers like that in the ground. But it was insane to me that his antler was in the dirt because I thought he was dead, But I've never seen a buck
Yeah.
ever put his head down
Huh.
like that. It was insane to me. But yeah, so that started off my hunt career, and it was a 5 consecutive year, and I harvested 10 big game animals, and I had 6 of them were solo, and 4 of them were with friends of mine. Some archery, some rifle.
That's
So
awesome. So what did switching to archery just have to do with letting you hunt earlier, or why did you move from rifle to archery?
yeah, so the dead reason I got into archery is because I could hunt 1 month earlier in California to give me that more experience. So that's it. I wasn't like going to be a diehard bow hunter or be anti-rifle or anything. I just wanted to get out in the field earlier to learn
Yeah.
more. And it
Yeah.
ended up becoming really good at archery, winning a couple 3D tournaments and such.
Very
So,
nice. Yeah,
yeah.
I
So,
switched from rifle to archery because like in Colorado, the rifle season I was hunting was like mid-November, and I'm like, this sucks. This is
Yeah.
it was 20 degrees. I'm like, at the warmest point of the day, it was 20 degrees. I'm like, I want to hunt in September, so I picked up a bow for that reason and that reason alone. Now I
Yeah.
love archery. It's so fun. Um, and if I ever get good enough at it, I'll quit rifle hunting. But I'm nowhere near that. So
Yeah, and plus Arizona has a late season rut hunt, archery only. So that's another reason I started getting archery, so that you could hunt December and January during the rut, archery
that's
only
cool.
tag. Yeah, so it's
Is
pretty
that
slick.
for mule deer or what species?
Mule deer, yes. So they have
Very
like
cool.
they have a couple different species, Sonoran mule deer, like, and then desert mule deer, Rocky Mountain mule deer. But so I chased a couple Sonoran mule deer last year. We'll get into that story here in a bit.
They have coos. Is it coos or cows deer? I think it's technically cows, but everyone says coos deer.
Dude, I always get them mixed up. They tell me not to say one when I go to Arizona, and I get there and I just panic. So I think it's coos is the proper.
I think the way people prefer to say it is coos, but I
Yeah.
think that the guy who discovered them, he in one of his books actually said his name is cows.
Yeah, I think
And
I
so
heard
it
that
should
same
be
thing.
cows, but for whatever reason, people say coos. So I don't know. I've never even thought about hunting one, so I guess it's not mine to say.
Yeah, I have a twin brother and he chases them around once in a while with he knows a couple of big YouTube hunter guys and he goes chase them around. But I've seen a few out there, but I've never really been like into it. It just never really
Gotcha. Did you
got me
get your
excited.
brother into hunting after your dove stuff, or was he a hunter before?
No, so I took him hunting for his first time in his first day, and I got him a buck his first day.
Oh wow,
And
man.
with me, yeah,
Cool.
it was my backpack, my rifle, my spot. Took him in there, and this buck just. Long story short, on this one, because we got plenty more. This buck just was rutting over, and he was a weird double main beam by 3 point, and shot him at like 100 yards. And the funny story was these guys were leaving. They didn't see a buck for 4 days, and I went in there as one of my spots, and we seen four bucks all on the hillside. Ended up shooting that one at 100 yards. It's his
That's
first
so
day
funny.
hunting. Yeah.
That's how it works, man. That's how it works. This last season in November, I was hunting, and we're hiking this ridge, and it's a small strip of public in between a bunch of private. And we're hiking in, and these guys are hiking out, and they're like, "We've been sitting here all day, blasted by the snow. It's frigid, it's cold, it's miserable." They're like, "We didn't see anything except for, of course, the giant herd that everyone sees in the middle of private." And they're like, "It's a waste of time. Don't bother." We hike out there, and boom, we immediately see two elk. So that's just how
Yeah.
it is, right? It's just different eyes, different perspective. So
Yeah, it's
I
funny.
believe it. So
Yeah,
yeah, I took us off. Go ahead.
my brother's like, let's leave a note on their car that there was deer in here. I'm like, no, that's kind of messed up. We're not gonna do that.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure they'll figure it out. But yeah, so we went a little off track there, but I know you got a list of other stories, man. Why don't you set the stage for the next one here?
Yeah, so I'll get into a couple like short stories, which is going to be kind of the precedent for one of these really crazy stories. So
Okay.
where we hunt is just in the middle of nowhere. Like if you see people out there, it's you usually don't stop. Like not to be a jerk, but now that I see people out there, like you're not stopping for those people because it could be kind of sketchy. So one time we were driving in and I was with a couple of buddies and we looked over and we could see this guy walking out of the middle of this cactus desert in a convertible. He was walking back to his convertible porch with a like shoot a revolver in his hand, in
Okay.
shorts, flip flops, and a tank top. And we're just like, that is insane. Like this guy should not be out here. So he runs to his car, jumps in, and is like chasing us up the road. And we don't know, like we assumed he just probably killed somebody, but we just got out.
Jesus.
And yeah, we went and pulled off, got out with our guns. Like it's insane stuff, this random stuff that happens out there. And then
Did you like call a game warden or the police or anything on that one, or
we
did
did
you
not want to be involved. Like it
just
was
get lucky to be out of it?
Russian mafia type vibes. Like it was
Oh
weird. Like we're
Jesus.
just,
Okay.
let's get out of here. Another story is we were glassing and we could see the road probably 8 miles away. And we knew there's like some government activity out there. We just don't know what it is, but there's three blacked out SUVs came this way. And there were some Harleys that came from the other side and they met up for a second and they both went the other way. And we're like, we don't know what that was, but it was some government stuff. And we're not even going to ask questions. Like it was insane type stuff. Yeah. So just out where I'm at is just random, crazy stuff. Right.
That's like Breaking Bad shit, man. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So coming into, this is a pretty crazy story. Coming into, it was 2021. And me and my uncle went hunting and we just got done hunting for the weekend. It was just a weekend warrior type situation there. And we didn't see much. It's kind of not doing so well out there with the drought. It's going to be good this year. So we're leaving, and my uncle's in his truck. We always take 2 trucks, and I'll tell you why on another story I have for Arizona. But we're driving out, and I'm still in my hunting camo. I'm like, hey, I got a 3-hour drive. I park at the road. I'm like, hey, go ahead. I'm gonna change all my clothes and get some comfortable clothes for the drive. He's like, all right, man, I'll see you later. We had cell phone service and such. So he leaves probably 10 minutes, and I get all changed, and I'm driving down the road. And as I'm driving, again, this road I've never seen one car on this road. It's pavement. It's like a whole road for a mine. That's it. But they're never even there.
Gotcha.
So I'm driving down the road, and I see this guy walking, and I'm like, why is somebody walking way out here? Like, this is not the spot. So as he's walking, I could see just like something's up with it. And I just can't. I'm trying to pick it up, and I could see something's in his hand. And I was like, what is in his hand? And all of a sudden, as I'm driving by, he's just on the other side of the shoulder. As I'm driving by, he picks up his hand and shoots at me.
No way.
Swear, there's a whole police report and everything. I could probably download it for you and send it to you. But yeah,
with a pistol, I assume.
With
right?
a pistol, yeah. He shoots
how
at me.
Far?
It was 10 foot. So if I was in this lane,
10 feet away.
I was in this lane, and it was a lane distance. So whatever that lane is, probably 10, 15 feet. So I duck down, and I'm like, whoa, and I just start shaking so bad. I'm like, bro.
Did he hit your vehicle or anything? Sorry to interrupt, man.
No, I'm assuming that he didn't like swing, like as if you were like hunting birds. He went like shot and point and stop. So I'm assuming it went over and his gun jammed, but I could hear the shot. It was 10 feet away, and I ducked down, and his gun like jammed. So I grabbed my gun, and I pulled over and called it in. And I'm like, bro, like I'm shaking so bad. And I call him. The dispatch lady was an absolute B word. She's like, I was like, I have my gun. I'm fine. And she's like, no, get away. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm keeping an eye on this guy. Because if he did it to me, he's going to do it to somebody else. I'm not going to go, be like a superhero or nothing, but I'm going to
protect myself
and just kind of, I called it in. I'm going to keep an eye on this guy. So
that's reasonable. I think everywhere but California, that like everyone would be like, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, California is a little Wild West. Like people think it's like super LA, but it's a little Wild West out here. So I see him walk and into like this desert, and a minivan pulls out, and it's a junk minivan. And he's coming towards me. I have my gun. I duck down, and I can't even see in the windows. So I'm like tripping out. I'm like, whoa. So I told the dispatch, I'm like, I'm going to follow him. She's like, do not follow him. I'm like, I'm following him. Like, I'm going to find out where he goes, because we have to get this, I'm following him. So it wasn't like a close follow. I'm not trying to pit maneuver him or nothing. So he goes and gets on the off ramp on the freeway, the opposite direction. He's going into oncoming traffic.
Bet you quit following him.
I did quit following him. I stopped at that exit. So I'm like, he's going the wrong way. So at that point, CHP, the park rangers, and the sheriff are all on their way. He ends up going up, flipping around, comes back, exits right in front of me, crosses over the freeway, and goes out into the Joshua trees. And I'm sitting there glassing him from, 200 yards away. I could see where he parked. And I could see him walk out into the desert. And finally the cops show up, and I tell them the whole story. I'm still shaking and crazy, this story. And then they go over there, and they come back, and they're like, it's just a girl in there. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But he took off walking into the desert, and they're like, like they just thought I was full of it. What? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what? I'm like, that. No, I'm like, he just shot at me. Like, I didn't make this up. Like, it's a true, and so after they went over, they're like, yeah, it's not him. He's not in there. I'm like, well, get the info, like something, like we got to look into this. He just shot at somebody. I thought he was trying to steal my truck, is my assumption.
Yeah.
And my one of my good friends, he's like a special cop. Like nobody knows what he does, but he's a cop, like doesn't really tell. So he looked into it, and he's like, dude, he's like, they just didn't write down enough information for us to do it. And I'm like, man, like insane. And all my cop friends were like, just shoot back next time. And I mean, you'll have to figure it out. But yeah, it was
Jesus
crazy. So I'm kind of glad his gun jammed.
Yeah, man. I'm really sad that that's where the story ends, because I really wanted to hear what the guy's deal was. But it's God, those cops, man, do your job. It's not, it was not hard to do your job. I mean, it's a hard job. I'm going to give them that. But
yeah, for sure, absolutely. But it was 30 minutes of them trying to decide whose jurisdiction it was. Was it CHP, sheriff, or park ranger? I'm like, it's somebody's. And finally, it was a sheriff, and he's like, yeah, there's nothing. I'm like, unbelievable.
So you just took off, and they were there with the van and the girl, and the guy
yeah,
just walked into the wilderness, never to be seen again.
yeah. And they were just like, yeah, he's not in there. And I'm like, that's all you guys are going to do. And I was like, so upset. And I was like, he clearly walked in there, and the sheriff was just like, no, he's not in there. I just couldn't believe it. And I was like, I can't believe that at all. It
That's
just
crazy.
and there wasn't enough information for my cop friends to look into it on the report. It was just like the sheriff just wrote it off. I was
Man.
pretty upset.
Yeah, I'm upset, and I'm hearing
Yeah.
this like probably years later. I'm like, what the hell? Just like follow footprints. He's walking into the woods. Like,
Yeah.
come on, I don't know.
And I followed him to give you guys plenty enough information.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of just where it ended. So now I always have a gun. So it was like a week and a half later, I went to a different spot, and the park rangers rolled up on me, and I had my gun on my hip, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't blame you." And I was like, "Yeah, So I always carry a gun now." And
Yeah, interesting. I've thought about that. I probably should. Right now, the only pistol I have is a 357 Magnum snub nose, which is my bear gun. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to walk around with that every day, but maybe I'll get 9mm or something. But Matt, that's a crazy story, man. We have not heard anything like that so far on the podcast. So thank you. I'm a little disappointed in the ending, but that's not your fault.
Me too. Yeah. I'm super bummed about it still. It's still getting me fired up. I'm still upset.
I bet, man. I bet. All right. Well, we'll keep going. What else you got for us, man?
Yeah, let's see. I got a bunch here. Oh, I heard you guys talking about the Starlink the other day. It's a quick little point. Well, the first time I seen it, we get out of the truck. It's like 4 a.m. It's me and my buddy that he just retired from professional Baja racing down in Baja. And so I'm teaching him how to hunt. And we get out of the truck, and he's like, "Look at that." And I'm just staring at the dirt, like it's pitch black. I'm like, "Look at what?" And he's like, "Look at that." And I'm like, "What am I looking at, bro? Like, it's just dark out here. We're about to hike in with headlamps." He's like, "No, look." And I'm like, "I'm looking what?" And he's like, "Look in the sky." And I looked up, and I was like, "Oh, dang." I was like, "What the heck is that?" And it's like,
isn't that weird?
It's so mesmerizing. It's just the most perfect line of satellites I've ever seen. It was.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it's in orbit. Like it feels like it's a couple 100 yards up in the air. It just doesn't. I don't know. The perspective is all skewed. It was weird. Me and my buddy had a very similar conversation, but with a lot more colorful language.
yeah. I think we sat there and like stared at it like with our binocular mouths open, but just stared at it for like 5 minutes. Like, what is that? Yep. Yeah, it reminded me of that when you were talking about that other day on the podcast.
And when you see that, you don't go anywhere. You just stand there and stare. It's the weirdest thing. I wish I could say there's a way to like go check it out, people, but I don't know if it is. It might just be random luck.
Actually, there is an website you could track it and know when it's coming by your house.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I just found that out. So it'll tell you like August, whatever, it's coming by your house, and you could see it at dark, or what this time it'll fly by.
Okay. I'll put a link to that in the show notes, everybody. So get out there and check out the creepiness. It'll probably won't be nearly as creepy looking in your backyard versus in the middle of the wilderness. But you'll understand. It's just so quiet, and again, it doesn't feel like it's in orbit. It feels like it's it feels like you should be hearing the hum of drones or something, like it's that close. But okay, yeah. Continue.
Yeah, so I had to chime in on that one because it was funny listening to you talk about it. So going into, I shot that first buck, and then I shot another buck a week and a half later. Both of those were rifle. And then going into my first archery deer, my brother had got a deer with his rifle the prior year, and we're hunting with bows, and we don't know anything about bow hunting. It's like same as rifle hunting,
Yeah.
So we go in, and I'm like, let's hike in and make some makeshift blinds, So we go in there, and there's like these dead trees, and we make these blinds. I'm like, hey, you go set up over there, and we'll just kind of see what happens. So we hiking in the dark, and we set up, and it's just so quiet. And I look up, and there's a buck just standing in front of me. And this is just in mule deer country. They don't pattern at all. They're just out there. He's just standing there in front of me. It was like a big 2-point, like you could fit a basketball between his forks. He was huge.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whoa, like I was not expecting to have a buck just standing in front of me. So I shoot it. I shoot at him. He was 60 yards, and he dropped all the way to his belly and ducked my arrow. And I was like, unbelievable. So he takes off running in a full loop and runs to 40 from me. And I'm like, insane. So I had another arrow ready, and I shot him for 50, and he dunked all the way to his stomach again. Like I've never seen a buck ever in this whole career drop to his stomach, ducked out arrow, and took off. And my brother comes across the radio and goes, hey, what was that? And I was like, I just missed the buck twice. And he's like, unbelievable. So I was like, yeah, I was like, I can't believe it. It was not, the sun wasn't even up yet. It was barely coming up. Like, it was
Yeah.
legal, but
That 30 minutes before the sun's
yeah.
actually up.
So
Yeah.
we're sitting there. I was like, let's sit here for a little bit longer, see what happens. So we're sitting there and I hear something on his side and I'm like, what was that? And he's like, I just shot a coyote. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that's insane. A coyote just walks out in front of his blind and he shoots a coyote. And I'm like, that's insane. Yeah. And I was like, rad, dude. So he ends up getting bored, and in blind setting, I get bored too. And he takes off for a loop and jumps on some other bucks and into that story. So we go, I'm like, let's go still hunt this. It's so flat. Like you could see 100 yards. That's it. I'm like, let's just go still hunt it back to the backside where I know there's like some bucks at. So we're just still hunting and I'm getting on some buck tracks. We bumped a couple. We're kind of just tracking them, slow hunting. And my brother's probably 200 yards away from me. We're just kind of working. And all of a sudden it's dead silent out in the wilderness where we're at. I'm sure you know. And a sonic boom hits. And I thought somebody just fired a rifle right by my ear, even though it was archery season. And I was like, boom. And I'm like, it scared the crap out of me because I was not expecting it. So, and then all of a sudden you could hear the jet like flying away. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I was like, dude, what the, he's like, dude, that was a sonic boom. I'm like, that's insane. And all of a sudden I look up and 40 yards away, I could see feet moving under like these junipers. And I was like, oh, that's a deer. And I think the sonic boom stood that buck up.
Yeah.
The buck was feeding out. And I go, it was a small fork of horn. And I go, he's 40 yards. So I put an arrow in, he's just feeding, pull back, shoot that buck at 40 yards. Right after the sonic boom, I was like, insane. And I called my brother and I was like, hey, can you come help me? He's like, with what? And I was like, I just shot a buck. And he's like, no way. That sonic boom stood that buck up and that buck fed out. And luckily, if not, I was going to bump that buck because he was on the other side of the juniper. Yeah, feeds out. He ran 20 yards and was piled up right there.
That's insane, man. So that's actually the second story I've heard. Actually, I kind of told one of them. It's not my story, but it's someone else's, where an airplane helped somebody kill something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Have you heard the other one? It's we were at a hog hunt here in Texas. I'm not in Texas right now. I'm in Colorado right now. So down in Texas. And we basically put up a camera on this feeder and nothing was there all day. We sat these things all day. We all, 8 of us sitting all different places, nothing. This one feeder had a cellular camera, and 30 minutes after everyone left, this big old hog showed up. So the next day they go back and they sit there until an hour past dark. Nothing. So they leave. Half an hour after they leave, big old hog shows up. But this time they have the cam ready to basically send them a picture immediately if anything triggers it. So it goes off. This gentleman who'd actually never killed a hog before, never actually hunted before, we're like, hey, it's yours, man. Like, get out there and get it done. So he runs out there. There's a videographer with him, so he runs out there. And then the guide. They run up there, and they could hear the hog just chowing down, doing what pigs do. But they're 400 yards out, and above a little rise, and so they can't see the hog, but they can hear it because it's a crystal clear night and there's nothing going on. And so they're just on these rocks, slowly moving, just trying not to spook the hog, just very slowly. All 3 of them just trying to get a little bit closer. And all of a sudden, like a bomber plane comes out of nowhere, and this is the middle of the night. Like we're talking midnight, right?
Oh, sure.
This plane, they see it in the distance, and it's coming right at them from right behind them, right to the hog. So they actually just time it. Whereas as soon as the noise picks up, they run the 150 remaining yards they needed to get within range to take a shot. And then they have this, cool red spotlight. So they spotlighted the hog. Hog doesn't even know it's on him. And then boom, 300-pound hog down. But
that's insane.
Right? It's no sonic boom or anything, but it's still pretty cool that these guys had this airplane. And meanwhile, the rest of the group is just back having beers. I think we were watching a UFC fight on replay or something, but I don't know. Crazy that you've also had an airplane help you put something down.
Yeah, imagine having buck fever, but then having sonic boom fever and then buck fever. There's sonic boom just scared you, and then a buck walks out, and first archery deer shaken and dumped him at 40 yards.
Yeah, man. I bet that put every animal within a mile on their feet.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So then to continue that story, it's true. It did. That's exactly what happened. So we keep out that buck and quarter him up and butcher him. We're 2 miles from it. And I got this whole deer on my back. I always want to pack the whole deer quartered up. as much as possible. Like if I run out of absolute all my energy, like grab a late quarter, buddy, you know?
Yeah.
So we're hiking out and all of a sudden we get on 3 more bucks. So my brother has the tag and he's working these 3 bucks, just kind of chasing them around. He closest he could get was 80 and he was not comfortable making that shot. So yeah, I'm sitting here back from him like 50 yards watching him stalk these 3 bucks with a deer on my back. It's pretty insane. So, yeah, it was kind of got a little wild up out there. It was pretty fun.
That's awesome, man. Matt, I'll say that as a newer hunter, I think you and I started at the same time, right?
Yeah.
About 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
You've got way more success than me, but it sounds like you're getting lots of reps, which is pretty cool. So this is fun to hear all these cool stories. I mean, you've had some crazy stories.
Yeah, there's always I got a few more that are insane.
Let's keep going.
Yeah, but yeah, so another one. Let's see what else we got. That's just a boring one. Here's a short one for you. So it's just kind of like a new hunter type thing, like a good thing to teach new hunters. You know, I know you got some on here. So I go into my spot. I'm flying out to Hawaii the next day. So I'm going in the spot. I'm like, I'm gonna hunt the morning and I'm gonna head out. I gotta fly to Hawaii the next day. So I go into my spot and I killed a buck there 2 weeks before with my bow. And now I have a rifle tag. So I'm going in there. It might have been more than a few weeks, but I go in there and there's cars parked at every turnout. The most cars I've ever seen. They're parked in the middle of the road. It's a 2-lane dirt road and they're blocking 1 lane. You have to go around them. There's so many people in my spot where I just shot this buck. Like I like to assume that word got out that I've been slaying animals in there, but there is just truck after truck after truck. There had to be 10 trucks in there and 2 parking spots just everywhere.
No
so I go, what the heck? Like,
I think all hunters or more some recreational folks?
All hunters, because like it was dark morning and I could see all their headlamps running. There was all hunters and they just moved in there. It blew my mind. I've never seen that many people in there again this whole time. And that was 2018. Ever since then, I haven't seen that many hunters in this one spot. So I go, well, I'm not going to go there. You know, I'm going to move out. I'm going to go somewhere else to a different spot. And I kind of know the spot. My buddy shot one there in like 2015. So it's a very popular spot. And I was like, man, I don't want to go over there. It's popular. So I'm like, oh, whatever. My spot's blown out. I'm going to go over there. And I think all the people on that side of the road pushed them all to where I was. So I go in there and there's not one person in this spot. It's the most popular spot on that whole range. And there's not one car in there. And I couldn't believe it. There's so many parking spots. There's like 8 parking spots and not one vehicle. Blew my mind. I go, well, I'm going to go there then. So I go in there and I hike in, I find some deer tracks and I'm not too familiar with the area. And I kind of see they go up this hill and I go up the hill following them and I get to the top and I look down and I could see this buck at like 100 yards just staring at me. And I'm like, oh man. So he takes off running. So I take off running. I'm like, you're running, I'm running, you know?
Foot race.
Right, and I knew he was going to stop. I knew he was going to stop eventually. So I go down, I get to where I could visually see where he was moving. And I was like, he's going to stop somewhere. So I calmed down. I set my gun like on a tall rock and I was like, he's going to show himself. So I have my gun set up on the bipod. I'm looking, and I see him. He's at the top of this mountain and he's like quarter to me a little bit. And I'm like, okay. And I was practicing that year before season, 500 yards. I was practicing long range stuff. Like I was telling you, I was studying minutes of angle, all the conversations. So I dialed to 465 is what he was. Dialed in. He was just standing there and I shot him 465. I get him back in the scope. I'm like, oh, I missed. Like that's the farthest buck I've shot. All the other ones are been 60, 40, 50, 60 in yards, you know? So so to go 465, I go, I missed, whatever. So I picked him up on the rifle scope and I've never seen a deer do this ever, but he's standing there a little front leg down on the hill and just face plants.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if he tripped over a log, but he just face plants, right? And I was like, jacked. I was like, boom, jacked up. I go in there, keep them all out, pour them up, go out, and there's a shortcut to the truck, right? I'm like, I'm not taking the shortcut. I'm going to walk the long way to the road, and I'm going to show every single one of these guys that pass me, like, what I have a buck on my back. They're all in my spot, you know?
Yeah.
So I go down. all the way this long way. It's an easier route, like it's down a wash. I get to the road and I have a 2 mile walk down the road, and not one car passed me the whole time. And I was like trying to show off. Yeah, not one car passed me. I was like, unbelievable. Like I just wanted to go rub it in their face because they were in my spot, but not one car passed me the whole time. It was so funny.
That is good, man. But maybe that's why they're all in your spot, is because you keep trying to show off your kills, Matt.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I was trying to advertise too much, but that's usually that was like the only one. But yeah, and then a park ranger ended up pulling me over when I was getting out the road and signed off my tag and stuff. And I became friends with him. So
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, that's expected.
cool.
That's expected. Yeah. I mean, if you run into one, for them to check you out. So
I love those guys. They talk to me all the time, and I talk to them. So it's good. I love seeing the fishing game, and DNR and all those guys. I don't mind seeing them at all.
Yeah, man. As long as you're doing everything on the up and up, they're all good guys.
Yeah, they'll come hang out with me in camp and stuff after hunts and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Well, almost all good guys. There's some that are a little loopy, and I think maybe a little power hungry. I don't know. Did you hear Dan Staten's episode, Elk Shape?
I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah, where he finds that like weed grow, and the guy's like not even concerned about the weed grow. He's actually more concerned about the angle of which he packed out his bull and all this.
Oh, really? No, I didn't hear that part of it.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a really, really good story. I'd recommend it to anyone that is listening. Matt, of course, for you if you're going to keep listening.
Oh, tomorrow.
The Dan Staten episode it's absolutely insane.
That not to get off track, but that episode you said was probably your favorite episode with I listened to it today. It was a really good one. I can't remember his name, but
I've got so many favorite ones at this point. I don't want to name anyone in particular, but
I'll tell you.
Who was it?
I gotta remember, but I could tell you later. I'm trying to remember the whole stories, but it was my favorite one too. I can't remember what it was. I'll text it to you. Okay. So that's that story. To roll into another story. I don't go with a lot of people hunting because a lot of guys don't put in like the amount of work I put in. So I will tell people ahead of season, like, hey, you could go with me, but you got to put in work this season. Like, I want to see you at the gym. I want to see you doing this and this, and put some cameras out. I don't even care if you put them local to your house. Like, let's get some kind of. I don't have a lot of time during hunt season to get my stuff, let alone somebody else's stuff.
Show value.
Yeah, so I let my uncle go with me, and my uncle used to hunt a long time ago, but he's getting up there in age. I think he's 60 or so, and he said he was training and stuff, but I don't think he was. So we're hunting pretty hard, and it's pretty selfish on my part. I was running him pretty hard, like we were doing. I think we did 14 miles that day, but he's a trooper. He never was like, hey, like let's chill, like I'm not feeling good or anything. So my other buddy that I used to rodeo with that I met, he came over and met with us. He ended up showing up late and just found me on a mountain randomly. So my uncle was exhausted, and I was like, we're going to go push on these does we seen over here and see if a buck shows up in that canyon. He's like, well, I'm gonna go back to camp. And I was like, all right. I was like, how to get back to camp? Like, right. He's like, yeah. So I was like, you're going to go this way and hit the road, hike the old 2-track all the way back to the truck. It's going to put you at the truck. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I got it. I was like, all right, perfect. I don't know what 2-track he walked down. I think it was just a wash.
Right. Yeah.
But he gets lost. So we get back to camp, and I'm like, I wonder if my uncle like came back, took a break, and went back out for the evening, So we're over there cooking some ribeyes, and I'm just getting worried. I'm like, oh, he's still not here, like still not here. Dark comes, I go, crap, like he should have been here by now, So me and my buddy go out for 3 hours, just hitting every high peak in the dark, looking for a headlamp or something.
Yeah.
We end up getting in the trucks, driving back down the road. Can't find him. Like, crap. I go, something's wrong, So I call my brother, and my older brother. He doesn't hunt at all. I go, hey, here's my Onyx pin. Don't show it with anybody, but here's my Onyx. It's a secret spot, and I call the sheriffs, because if people don't know that, the sheriffs will come out and they'll fly you in a distress call for free, rather than like a medevac or something, or search and rescue can charge you. So the sheriff's department comes, and I told the sheriff's department, I go, hey, buzz my camp. This is my location. Here's my Google Maps and my Onyx. Buzz my camp. Flash me. I'll flash back, so you know where my camp is. I think my uncle is to the west. So that's the last. So the helicopter buzzes me. I see him. We communicate a little bit. They circle me once, and they head off. Never seen him again. So this whole night, I'm just like worried. I'm like, I don't know where my uncle is. Like, have no idea. So it comes morning, and where we were at, we didn't have a signal. So I had in the morning, I go, well, we're not going to hunt. I'm going to hike the tallest mountain and get a signal. So I climb up the tallest mountain, and I get a text. We got your uncle. It was from my brother, right? This is the funniest story. I wish my uncle was here. So they find him in the middle of the desert and picked him up. So they picked him up, took him all the way back to the freeway, which is 40 miles away. And they drop him off at the off ramp. So he's standing there waiting for a squad car to come pick him up with a backpack and a bow and arrow in his hand, just standing on the off ramp of a freeway. So, so finally the squad car comes. I don't know why the helicopter just didn't be like, hey, go that way. They're right there, or come back and be like, we found him, follow us, like anything. It's kind of blew my mind. So they drop him off, squad car picks him up. They try to bring him back out there, but he doesn't even know. He didn't even pay attention to where we were going. He was just along for the ride, right? They can't even get their squad car. They get lost. They don't know. He doesn't know where they're going. They don't know where they're going. So they turn around and they take him back into town. So the town is like another 50 miles. They take him into town. God. They drop him off at the casino, and my uncle calls his wife and he's like, hey, this is what happened. I need you to pick me up. And it's a 3-hour drive, right? And she goes, I'll pick you up in the morning. I don't want to drive out there right now. And he goes, get in the car and come pick me up. I'm sitting in the middle of a casino with a bow and arrow and a backpack in full camo. He was in the casino sitting there trying to get food. He was getting food at the buffet. This is the funniest story. She would not go pick him up. And he just got her a brand new car. He's like, get in the car. I just bought you. Come pick me up. She would not do it. So my brother drove 3 hours and went and picked him up. So the funniest part about that is he goes, when he was lost, he's seen our trucks driving up the road, but never thought to come to us. Like, he goes, yeah, I seen trucks driving. And they were honking. I was like, that was us. We were trying to find you. And he's like, yeah, I couldn't find you. So he said he walked 15 miles, but he didn't. It was like probably a mile and a half, but he was so delirious and dehydrated, I guess, it just was. So he got lost, and he's like, well, I got a free helicopter ride out of it.
That's crazy, man. I'm glad that something that like could have ended pretty bad ended up being something we can laugh at here, because that's a pretty funny story. Especially, I could just imagine him at the casino being like, pick me up, and her be like, nah.
It was so funny. He was like, when he was telling us the story, we were crying, laughing. It was so funny. But yeah, it was a weird story how the helicopter just didn't like tell him, like, go to that road and come tell us, like, go down that road, like, like, get back together kind of thing. So luckily he rode with me that time, so he didn't have a vehicle out there. But it was pretty crazy. The next year he went hunting. I've never seen so many gadgets on a guy. He had a smartwatch. He had solar battery chargers for his phone. He had all the Onyx maps. He had a Vinzum, he had stuff hanging off his backpack. He had emergency blankets, lighters. And I was like, man, like, good on you, but that's going to get heavy. So
man, that's funny. That actually jumped to my next question, which was like, did he ever go hunting again? And I'm glad that he did, man.
He did, but
maybe a little bit more prepared.
I talked to him the other day, and he goes, he's like, I'm done. He's like, I'll sit in a tree stand or a blind. He's like, I'm not going with you guys anymore. I'm like, I respect it. Like, at least you're honest, He's a boat captain down in the ocean. He works a lot, so he doesn't have a lot of time to train, obviously, and with his age.
Well, he's never gonna get lost again with all of his new gadgets, but that's pretty funny, man.
Yeah, it's a hilarious story. So I started a little podcast too. My buddies down in LA, they have some big podcasts, and they were like, just do it for fun. So I started it, and I'm trying to get him on here to tell a story, because he has like some wild stories from back in like the 70s, just the craziest stuff. Like, his truck got stolen one time while I was hunting.
Oh yeah,
yeah, just like crazy stories. So
it'll be send him my way, man. I'd love to hear him. I'd love to hear his side of the story as far as him getting lost.
Yeah, not to do a plug on here, but do you know who Caterpillar is?
I do know who Caterpillar. Well, I don't know him. Is that who we're talking about?
I met him once, but he has the best stories, and he was on Hunt Wars.
Okay.
So yeah, get him on. He has the craziest energy. I'm going to be on his podcast. tomorrow. But yeah, get him on. He's a wildcat.
I'll reach out to him after we're done here, man. Yeah, he followed me on Instagram a long time ago,
Oh yeah.
and I've just been like, you know what, I'm gonna make sure at some point I do reach out to this guy and ask him some stories because you're right, he does have some crazy energy. So I'll have to connect with him.
Yeah, I was supposed to go work for their Full Draw guys, and I ended up was working on this reality TV show deal at the same time, so I didn't end up going work for them. But I went there and helped them at a show, and they were like, we went to they closed that archery course for us to shoot the next day, and they were like, man, who was that guy in the front row? I go, oh, that was Caterpillar. He's got good energy. They're like, man, he fired us up the whole show. It was the best show because of him. He's just got the craziest energy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'll definitely reach out.
Yeah.
Cool,
So
Matt, what else you got, man? I know you got a bunch of little ones for us, so I don't want to, run you dry here on your stories, but you got any more?
yeah, I got a couple more. So the next year, my uncle went with us hunting. It was just me and him. So this is just a good story to kind of tell my uncle again about my uncle just being like so quirky, So we go into the spot and it's archery. It's probably like 2 weeks in archery, and it's so hot here in California during archery season. That year, I swear it had to be 115 degrees.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was brutal. So we're walking into this one spot in the dark, and it was 85, 90 degrees. And I got 1 mile and I said, nope. I turned around and went right back to the truck. I was like, we're going to die out here. Like, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
So we go back to the truck, and I'm like, let's just go find a spot. I don't even have any spots like that I could think of. I was like, let's go drive around. That was my goal that year. I was like, if I don't see him move, I don't see him. Cause I have the tendency to get stuck on a buck and just, only on that one buck. And sometimes it'll kind of hinder my whole season if I spend too much time,
Yeah.
So it's like move, move, move. So we go hit a couple mountain ranges. We're kind of looking around. I'm like, I'm not liking the terrain. I'm not liking it. I'm not liking it. It's a new mountain range for me. I'm like, I'm not liking it. So finally we get to this one spot and we do like a little tiny hike, and I'm liking it. There's deer tracks everywhere, kind of by this old well, but there's no water in it. So I'm like, hey, we're going to hunt here in the morning. He's like, okay, cool. So we end up going up this road, finding a camp. And I'm like, we're going to hike in the morning. I find on my Onyx, I go, the tallest mountain, that's it. It's 2 miles away. We're going to hike in the dark, actually it was the evening. Yeah. So we took a break in the evening. I go, we're going to hike to that mountain 2 miles away, get to the top and glass. He's like, all right. So we go in there, I get to the top and I sit down in glass, and boom, there's like the buck I killed. He's probably 30 inches wide, 4x4, like 160 buck. I see him. I'm like, oh, I'm going to stalk him. My uncle's like, all right. So my uncle's never seen somebody kill a deer with a bow. So I said, just wait here, just watch it. I'm going to talk to you on the walkie once in a while and just kind of inform me what they're doing. I'm going to hit you up, So I get down there, and, when once you get down there, everything changes.
Oh yeah.
So he's up on this mountain, 300 foot up, and I'm down in the flats trying to, get the wind right and stuff. And I go down there, I go, hey, I get a hold of my uncle. I go, where are the bucks at? He goes, oh, they're by that juniper. And I just look up and there's 50 junipers. And I'm like, well, I'm like, what? I'm like, what juniper? He's like, the only one out there. I'm like, there's 50 of them. I'm like, I'm down in here. He's like, he's like, no, the only one. I'm like, bro. So we finally like have this miscommunication back. Like, he's just that guy, So finally I go, okay, I'm going to drop my radio. I had a Garmin watch. I took my watch off. I dropped my cell phone. I dropped everything besides my harness and my bow.
Yeah.
So he kind of told me, he goes, hey, just so you know, he's like, they're up that way. And I was like pointing. He's like, they're up that way. When you get to them, there's 3 bucks. The one you want is the closest one to you. And I said, okay. Dropped everything, dropped all my communication with him, and I just have to zone in. That's why I like hunting solo so much, because I just like to zone in and be, involved. Yeah. If somebody's in my ear, I'm gonna kind of lose my crap a little bit. So I end up sneaking up on this buck, 52 yards. He picks his head up, and I shoot him without even knowing with the Rege hypodermic and full pass through. But I didn't know because it was like last 30 minutes of light. So I shoot him, and I just kind of duck down, and I know that 2 other bucks ran up the hill, but he didn't join. I go, oh, I drilled him. I drilled him, So the funniest part about this story is I go back to my walkie, and I get a hold of my uncle. I go, hey, come down here. He goes, what happened? I go, I don't know. Just come down here. So he ended up seeing me draw my bow back and watched it. But from where he was, he didn't know I fired. He thought I let down.
Oh,
so I get down there, and I drilled him. And he starts shaking so bad. Like he's like, what? He's like, that's crazy. He's like, I've never seen, he's like, I seen the deer. I seen you. He's like, I seen you draw. I thought you let down, but you shot him. I was like, yeah, I shot him. And he's like, whoa, he was like shaking so bad. It was probably the coolest story. That's why I kind of like, I prefer to hunt solo, but stuff like that, I'm like, oh, it's cool to have somebody around for like that excitement, you know?
Yeah, to ride that wave of emotion, that like
Yeah.
excitement, that happy, whatever you're feeling, like to like it just amplifies when you have something to do it with.
Yeah, I've shot a lot of deer by myself. And the worst part is like shooting one and being like, yeah, nobody's here.
Look, looking for that high five and
Yeah,
having a
kind of thing, you know. But
high
it's cool. It's cool telling them this, like telling everybody the story and such, you know. So the funny part is we go back to the truck. I go, let's go dump everything because we got a 2 mile pack out on this guy. You know, I know you're not going to pack a lot, kind of thing. So and I didn't know how good I hit the buck. I didn't know it was a pass through or anything. I just knew he went down the bottom and he wasn't coming. I didn't think he was going to come out. So I was like, let's give him time. So we go all the way to the truck, drop all of our stuff. We're heading back in, and my uncle goes, I think we're back to the truck. So it was so dark out there. We went and we walked and did a full 360, ended up back at the truck. Yeah. And I look at my Onyx because I was tracking my Onyx. I'm like, oh crap. Like I was just too excited. I wasn't paying attention. So then we had to go back up and get the deer out and got him out at like midnight,
That's
probably.
funny, man. I was gonna say that like it sounds to me like your uncle was navigating again.
Yeah, he's I think he was doing circles again, but I almost had to call a helicopter. If so, I'd be like, hey, pick this buck up for me too. You know, I don't want to pack
Yeah.
him out.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's cool. I like when you got to share that moment with your uncle. I've already told my hunting buddy, I was like, man, when we finally get this elk down with our bows, I was like, I'm gonna ugly cry. I'm gonna hug
Yeah.
you. I'm gonna need you not to tell nobody about it, but like it's gonna be a special moment for all of us. I was like, whether you do it or I do it, I can already tell like it's been years of emotions building up to this archery elk kill, and who knows, maybe it's this year, maybe it's 10 years down the road, but I'm just gonna keep trying because it's
Oh
you know
yeah.
trying's half the fun. So if
Yeah,
not
that's
more than half the fun.
yeah, yeah, that's gonna remind me about another story with my buddy. But so another story is it's my first year hunting Arizona.
Okay.
And me and my two buddies, my buddy Dave that I rodeoed with, and then my other buddy, he's a millionaire. He's like, hey, I want to hunt with you guys. We're like, all right, you know. And he had, you know, the Tejon Ranch in California. It's where Joe Rogan shoots a lot of elk.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like $50,000 elk country over there. I was teaching him how to bow hunt, so he gifted me one of his pig tags, and we went in there and shot a pig. So
Oh, cool.
he's got money. It's like it's not too expensive. It's
What do
like
they charge for a pig there?
the membership for eight pigs, and the yearly member is like 10 grand just for 8 pigs. So
Oof. Okay.
yeah, it comes out to be like $1,000 a pig. So it was nice
That's
to,
pretty expensive, but I'm down in Texas. They're like, get rid of them. You know,
yeah,
take a grenade launcher and just blow up as many as you can. But thinking of someone charging $1,000 a pig is pretty crazy. But
yeah. Caterpillar invited me on. Well, he didn't invite me. He did like an open invite for pig hunts, and it was $1,000 for that. And I go, I'm good on that.
yeah,
I shot a pig already, but I ended up shooting a boar down there. So my buddy's got money. My other buddy is super cool. He's an older dude. We used to rodeo together. Same guy I've been talking about this whole time. And we go to Arizona. I do a lot of research because I'm the only one that researches anything ever. And I go, this is supposed to be a tag we could draw pretty quick, non-resident deer tag, mule deer, and let's go hunt it, you know? Well, little did I know that that tag is good, but not in the season we were. We were too early. Those bucks don't
oh,
even come down until some weather hits. So we go out to Arizona, and them two drew a tag and I didn't, which is kind of random. So I was like, I'll still go with you guys. I'll help you guys, you know, like
yeah.
you guys don't really know how to hunt. Like I'll still go 9 days. Like sounds good. So have you ever hunted Arizona or no?
No, no, I've done Colorado, Washington, Texas, but never
Yeah.
Arizona.
Arizona's wild, and I'll tell you why right now. Like it's insane. So we end up going, and you know, we're just not seeing good bucks, like just little forkies, and we're checking out all this terrain. There's like a lot of bighorn and just no good bucks. So my buddy wants to shoot anything. He'll shoot a spike. You could shoot spikes in Arizona. He'll shoot a spike, right?
Gotcha.
So we're hunting around, and I ended up getting them finally to get high in glass. I'm like, we have to get high in glass. That's how you guys hunt. So finally we did. And I glassed up a big group of does up there. So I go, let's go push up on them. So my buddy goes away, and it's me and my buddy Dave, the rodeo buddy. He used to hunt some elk and stuff. So we're moving up on these does, and we end up getting up there, and on top of this ridge, I could look down, and 40 yards away, I could see a deer's back under this bush. But then there's these two Indian guys out probably 200 yards, and they're looking at us, and we're looking at these deer. And I'm like, oh, these guys want these deer. And we're like, oh, crap, like we're 40 yards. Like we didn't mean to like just jump in front of them like that, but they're coming in from the north. We're coming in from the south. Like, we're 40 yards.
Yeah. Not intentional.
And my buddy has a tag, obviously, and it's a rifle, 40 yards. And I'm like, hey, like, just get ready. Like they're going to bump out of here quick. So they bump out, and there's these 3 little forked horns, and we're not going to shoot forked horns. Like we don't mind who does, but it's just not on our list for what we want to do right now. So these 3 bucks take off running, and the 2 guys down there, they throw their arms up like, what the heck? Like you just bumped out. We're like, yeah, they're just little forked horns. Like they were tiny forked horns too.
Yeah.
So they're mad at us. They take off back. I tell my buddy, I go, hey, there's some bucks probably running to you. And we get back to the truck, and I was like, hey, did you ever see those bucks? He goes, no, why don't you guys shoot them? We're like, oh, there's like little forked horns. He goes, I would have shot them. Like, yeah, but you weren't with us, man. You weren't with us. So we're not going to shoot them. So right when those deer to go back a little bit, when those deer take off, we look down, and we're standing on a mountain of geodes. You know what that is?
Yeah.
It's like those rocks that are like all crystallized for the people that don't know. We're standing on a mountain of these things. So I threw a couple in my backpack. I'm like, oh, I got to take a couple of these things home. It was just insane that we were just like this mountain. Like I've never even seen one ever. And we're just like a mountain of them in Arizona.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we get back to camp. My buddy's pissed at us. He's like, you guys should have shot him. We're like, we're not shooting them, So I think I don't even know if that was the first day or not, but my buddy's a millionaire, right? And we get back to camp, and me and my buddy, we cook ribeyes like every night. We're hunting, you got to protein up kind of thing. He's over there eating top ramen. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? I'm like, you're not gonna be able to hunt 9 days like off top ramen, like maybe like a little supplement meal, like lunchtime. But I was like, dude, come have some ribeyes, like he was super like underprepared. It was so funny. The richest guy in the group was eating top ramen. It was funny. We still cracked up about it.
That's funny. Yeah, that's how they get rich, right? Is they're thrifty.
Oh yeah,
they're 99-cent meal.
Yeah, he's super cheap, this guy. So to keep going on that Arizona hunt, what do we end up doing next? Oh, so we move into some other mountain ranges, and I come across these guys in these UTVs, and they have 3 bucks in the back, and there's 5 of them. So I ended up just talking to this guy. He's super cool. 3 of the guys don't speak English, but 2 of the guys are American. So he's like chatting with us. He's a local there, and I'm just, we're just bullshitting. And he's like, hey, take my number. He's like, if you guys want any help, like, I'll kind of help you out kind of thing, like whatever, Yeah. So for a few days, we're chatting back and forth, and like, hey, like, you guys see anything? Like, no. He's like, go try this spot. We go try it. It's trash. And he's like, yeah. He's like, all those bucks don't move down until later. He's like, you might find one. He's like, but it's gonna be tough. I'm like, all right, well, thanks for the info. We're staying in touch kind of thing. So we're checking all these mountain ranges. So we end up going to this way other mountain range that's a little higher country right by a reservation. And I was like, that's the spot we've been trying to go, if not higher. So we go in there. And on the way in there, we see these monkeys, dude. And I don't know if you know what a Coda Monday is. You ever heard this?
No, I was wondering if you actually meant monkeys when you said monkeys, but go ahead. I don't know what a Coda Monday is.
So to go back a little bit, we took 2 trucks. My other buddy's truck broke down. We took it to the Ford dealer. It was getting worked on. So we're all piled in the truck, right? And there's these little monkeys, which is a Coda Monday. It's a cousin to a raccoon, but it looks just like a monkey. There's a whole pack of them running in front of the truck, and we're all just quiet driving, staring at these things. And my buddy in the back goes, I'm seeing shit. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, no, you're not seeing shit. Like, we're looking at these monkeys. Like, they're just running down the road. It was the craziest thing. I'm like, never seen this in my life. Like, just blows my mind. So it's the funniest.
I think I was in Mexico, and I think I saw something that reminds me of exactly what you're describing.
Yeah, it's a cousin raccoon with like a long tail that kind of sticks up, and they all like run in a pack.
Yeah, so I guess it sounds exactly like it is. I was just basically thinking, what are these weird monkey raccoons when we drove to Mexico? And so, okay, but seeing those in the middle of Arizona, I'd be like, what the?
Yeah, we were tripping out. We thought we were freaking seeing shit. It was tripping us out. We're like, we're going insane, and this is gonna go into the story later, right? So I'm like, man, we're going insane. So we're going in this road, and I see this doe bed down, it was real quick. I just seen her move down and bed down, and I'm like, oh crap, like there's like some deer there, you know? So I told my buddy, I was like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. You guys have the rifles. We're 200 yards away. I'm just gonna kind of go let my scent push them and see if they'll kind of just go out into the opening, because you guys will not, there is no stockable position. So I'm gonna go let my scent go. So I got my handgun on, that's all I had on my side. And I'm kind of working my way, and it's the worst, rockiest mountain ever. And I get up right behind the deer, and these pigs start chasing. They start charging me. These javelinas are charging me. I have my gun out, and these javelinas are running by me, these little piglets. I'm like jumping. They're like charging me to get their piglets. It was insane. I'm like about to shoot a javelina. It's my first time in Arizona. I've never even seen a javelina before.
Yeah.
And pigs are charging me. I'm like insane. Like it was just blowing my mind. Ended up jumping that doe out, and she was by herself, but it was midday. It was, worth a try kind of thing.
Yeah. So you didn't set up a shop for any of your buddies?
No, it was just a doe. She was just by herself. It blew my mind.
Yeah, I've never run into any javelinas, but I've heard that they're mean little bastards.
Yeah, they were like
and
charging
stinky.
me. Yeah,
Stinky.
Between the monkeys on the road and the javelinas on the mountain charging me, I was like, what are we doing here? Like, this place is insane. The most amount of animals I've ever seen in my life, quail and everything. I love Arizona now. Like, I'll probably draw 4 elk tags in Arizona before I draw 1 in California here where I live.
That's crazy, man. I actually I have started putting in for points in Arizona, so it's on my list eventually.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys drawing some elk with 2 points non-residents right now if you work it right.
Huh. We'll have to talk about that afterwards.
Yeah,
to make sure it stays at 2 points. Because in Arizona,
exactly.
Can't you get 2 points for free? Like,
yep.
Yeah, where you take like a hunter ed course, and then something else you can do where you always have 2 points.
So if you take your hunter's ed course, which you could do it online now, thanks to COVID, thank you very much. It's $300, but you have a lifetime point for every species.
Yeah.
So that's a benefit to whoever doesn't do that. Or you could do like a half online, half in Phoenix course. But I'm going to spend way more money than $300 to drive to Phoenix. I'm just going to pay it online and do that. So you have a lifetime point for every species. And then if you apply for the same species continuously for 5 years, you'll have a point the whole time until you stop applying for that species.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So once you hit 5 points, you'll have 7 technically. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. All I know is I think I have 2 actual points, like paid for points at this point. So
no, I love Arizona. They got some big animals.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. So continuing from that, the javelinas charge us, that doe busts out. We go back, and I think it was the next day we go into this different mountain range. And when we get in this mountain range, we get as high as we can. And it's supposed to be good on deer, according to some people. And I'm glassing out in these foothills, and my buddies are glassing the desert. And I look, and I'm like, huh. I kind of like look away, and I'm like, I didn't just see what I seen. So I look again, and I'm like, there's no way I'm seeing this right now. I'm like, there's no way. And I look again, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm seeing a bear right now. And my buddy Dave's like, no way. And I was like, yeah, we're like in the desert. And I'm like, there's a bear right there. And he's like, no way. And he glass. He goes, yeah, sure shit, there's a bear. And I'm like, that's what I thought. I'm like, crazy. So I texted that local. I go, hey, do you have a bear tag? He goes, no. I go, hey, well, I got this bear. If you have a bear, if you know somebody, there's a bear over here. Thanks for the info you've been sharing with us all week. Here's some info back. He goes, hey, go to Walmart tonight and just buy a tag. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you could do that? I have no idea, right? I have no idea. He goes, yeah. So that night, I think there was that night, we get my buddy's truck back, and it's the end of the deer hunt is that night. So I'm sitting there like kind of like just hanging out in the hotel room, because we ended up getting a hotel because we were a truck down and too much equipment for 2 trucks, for 1 truck. And my buddy goes, hey, do you want to go kill that bear? And I go, boom, yeah, let's go. I threw my slippers on. I go, let's go to Walmart. I go, let's go to Walmart. Let's go buy a tag. It's $300. And I go, let's go. Like, it's worth a try. So we go over to Walmart. I go in my slippers. And I don't know what it is. This Walmart had the best looking girls I've ever seen in my life. Every single girl in there was the best looking girl. And I was like, what is this Arizona place? Like, this place is insane. Like, I love Arizona.
I think that's Arizona and not Walmart. I'm gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was like, I've never seen a girl this good looking in a Walmart before, and there's 10 or 15 of them. So I ended up going in there and buying a tag, and the guy, it was like late at night. The guy had no idea what he was doing. So luckily we got the tag. Go back in there the next day. And my other buddy that's ended up taking off back to California is like, I'm over it, pissed. I didn't shoot a buck. I'm like, whatever. We go back in there, go to the same spot, look even higher. I'm like, there's a bear laying in the top of that tree. And my buddy's like, no way. I'm like, yeah, there's a bear laying in the top. He's like, let's move in on it. I'm like, all right. I don't even have a gun. I didn't even bring a gun with me. I had to shoot my buddy's gun. Is a 300 Weatherby mag. I never shot it before in my life. So we're working all the way up to this bear, and I look across the canyon, and there is the biggest bear I've ever seen in my life walking with us 350 yards away. Just we're going up this ridge, he's going up that left ridge. And I'm like, no
This
way.
is the second bear. So like you're going after the one in the tree.
Yeah.
There's another bear walking up an opposite ridge.
Yeah. There's another one walking up towards that one. And I believe the one up higher was bigger than this one but this one was a giant. And I was doing a lot of research
right next to you.
Yeah. I was like, how do you judge a bear, like this, So we're sitting there watching it, and there's like some pinyon pines. So this bear's just kind of fiddling around and kind of messing around. I'm like, I'm gonna wait and see if he stands up, because then I could judge like if he's like 6 foot tall, 7 foot tall. He stands up and he rips this pinyon pine that's probably 8 inches diameter and breaks it in half to get the pine nuts out of it. And I'm like, that bear is a giant. So I'm like, my buddy's like, do you want to shoot it? I'm like, heck yeah, I want to shoot it. Like, I would shoot a smaller bear. I'm like, yes. So my buddy's like, all right. He's like, I'm like 350. I'm like, what's your gun sight? He's like 200. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what's your holdover on your ammo? So we kind of did that. And finally that bear looks at me, and his head was just huge. And I'm like, yep. So as soon as he went broadside, I squeezed the trigger. No idea what happened. Like, it's a 300 Weatherby mag. It kicked me so hard, my freaking teeth chattered. I'm like, whoa, what the heck? My buddy's like, you hit him. He's like, he hunched up, and I was like, no way. I'm like, I hit him. He's like, I'm like, no way, dude. Really? He's like, yeah. My buddy was terrified after that. He's like, oh crap. He's like, we gotta go over there. He's like, you got your handgun? There's gonna be more bears. Bears gonna be coming after us because we're gonna be keeping this thing. So we go over there, and I'm like, dude, don't even like count our, stuff before it hatches, kind of thing, whatever that saying is. So we go over there. That bear didn't run 20 yards. He's piled up. And I'm like, no way. Like, this hunt, I didn't have a tag for. I just went with you guys to help you. We didn't see any good bucks. And then I'm the one that shot the bear. It was insane. So we ended up going over there. We tried to roll this bear over. This bear was so heavy, we couldn't even roll it over, the two of us. We had to roll it downhill just to get it to turn over to start quartering it out. So it ended up, we were 800 feet in elevation and 3/4 of a mile. It was steep. So we ended up quartering him out. I hung some in a tree. And my buddy went and took a front quarter, went and got the truck, got closer. I took all the bear off and emptied my pack to go out for the second load. And I'm not even joking. When you pack a whole bear up, I just packed the head and the hide, and it weighed more than a full deer in my backpack. It was the heaviest thing. I fell down 3 times. So we ended up going, I ran back up the hill. Like, when you dump off that much weight, I pretty much floated back up the hill to grab the rest. And went and grabbed the rest, went back to the truck, and packed them out and drove home that night. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know much about bear hunting. I want to. I have a bear tag this year.
Oh, cool.
It's really just, I have an elk tag in Colorado. It's like 20 extra bucks as a resident.
Yeah.
And I signed up as a resident because I lived here when I signed up. But like, it's just the size of their skull. Is that like how you measure a bear, or like what are the measurements as far as like the scoring system for bears?
Yeah, so a lot of guys will like measure a rug, but not like official scoring. They'll be like, oh, it's an 8-foot rug, But the skull is from, like, if you put the skull on a table and pushed it to the back of the wall, it would be from the back of their skull to their snout. And that bear measured out 20 and a half, which is borderline Boone and Crockett bear. He was 6 years old.
I think I heard from someone's podcast, but it was Bill Vanderhayden, who's the owner of Iron Will Broadheads.
Oh, yeah.
I think he just killed a bear that he said was an absolute monster bear. And I think he said 20.5 as well. So I believe that you had a pretty monster bear there, man.
Yeah, my taxidermist has been doing all the Bass Pro Shop stuff. And he goes, that's the biggest bear I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
He's had my bear for 3 years now. I'm about to go kick his door in and get it back. But yeah, I need my rug back. Thank you very much. But yeah, he says the biggest bear he's ever seen. Trust me, it's the biggest bear I've ever seen, because I haven't seen very many. But
Yeah, right. I've seen plenty of bears, but they're all usually pretty piddly and nothing to worry about. But I've always wanted. I've seen one bear in the wild from about a mile and a half away, and we were glassing for elk, and it's just moving down this hillside. And we're like, what is that? Like, it just didn't make sense to us. This giant black blob, and then we eventually realized, oh, it's a bear. We ran after it. Long story short, it scared the shit out of me. I wish I had my pistol on me. No shot was had, but.
yeah, bear hunt's crazy. That's my goal this year is some bear hunting. I absolutely love it. Like the meat is so good. People, the bear had probably 2.5 inches of fat all the way around its hide, which we got
That's
rid of that.
awesome.
But I love bear meat. It's so good.
Oh, you
And
didn't save the fat? Man, I heard that's great for like all sorts of different things, like cooking oil, like just render it down and stuff like that.
let me tell you about I would have, but it was heavy enough as it was. It was
All
so
right, all right.
freaking heavy. Like I'll next one I'm gonna do it and render it down and like can it or jar it, whatever they say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a crazy story how that all happened, just not even my hunt. And luckily my buddy didn't want to shoot a bear and let me borrow his gun. So
Yeah.
I owe him big for that.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you got. I also feel bad for your millionaire buddy who just took off because he didn't shoot his button buck or whatever.
Yeah. He was down to kill a spike. I ended up calling him after shooting the bear. I go, hey, I just shot that bear. And he's like, no way. And I was like, yep. And he was like probably 2 hours away. And he's like, no way, dude. And I was like, yeah, just ended up shooting. He's like, dang. He's like, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah. So it was
That's
kind of
awesome.
a rub it in his face kind of thing. But
Yeah, yeah. Without having to hike the long way to show it to all the.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, we
Cool,
ended up
Matt.
getting it back, and we were doing some rodeo stuff the next day. So I was getting them all finished, getting cleaned up, and my buddies came over and they were just tripping out, like biggest bear laid all the way down my truck. And I'd show you a picture, but it's at the taxidermist.
Ah,
You
do you have
know.
any pictures from the actual hunt?
Yeah, I have some. I'll send them over to you.
Perfect, man. I'll put them on
Yeah.
the Instagram post when the episode comes out. Well, cool, man. You got any other ones for us, or we tap it into it? I only got 7 years to pull from, and you've told us a bunch of great stories already.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know if I have any more. I mean,
Hey, not a problem, man. Go make some more, and we'll have you back on. At the rate that you make stories, give us a year, and you'll have 10 more stories for us.
yeah, my last couple of years have been dry. My hunting spot's kind of dead right now because of drought. But we do have this like 180-inch 3-point 3x3 that's absolutely 36 inches wide that we're going after this year. So we're
Awesome.
hoping this year. But I'm on bear game this year. This year I have 2 bear tags, one in Arizona, one in California. I have a over-the-counter archery tag, California, rifle deer tag, Arizona, and I'm going to Idaho. Some guy just invited me to go trap wolves,
Oh,
and
cool.
I might pick up a mule deer tag because I'm going to hunt all of October uh, in probably Arizona, California, and then October 30th, I'm going to go to Idaho and hunt there for a few months.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, luckily my schedule lets me do that, but yeah, should be
Yeah,
fun.
I wish. I wish. I have a Colorado elk and bear tag, and then just it's a generic Texas tag where they give you like 9 or 10 deer to kill or whatever because they got
Oh,
so many
really?
there.
That's cool. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's not actually 9 or 10. I want to say it's like six, like maybe seven. I'll have to get the specifics of it. I don't remember from the last time I bought that tag, but
Well, that's enough.
um,
California gives us 2 and Arizona gives us 1 deer tag. So
yeah, it's a handful of deer and like 4 turkey, and I think there's actually 1 mule deer tag on there if you can find those. So there's all sorts of stuff. Never mind the fact that if it ain't from Texas, you can shoot it whenever you want. So
I
there's
heard that. I heard that. That's pretty cool. Axis deer is on my list, but I want to go to Maui because if I don't see axis deer, I'll just be sitting on the beach, you know?
yeah, exactly right. Well, cool, man. Well, Matt, this was a lot of fun, buddy. You had some crazy stories, some
I
stuff that
know.
I never really expected to hear. Like your first 2 stories are just insane. Um, and I could have sworn when you glassed up that bear, you were going to say that you saw like the raccoon monkeys riding the javelina into the sunset or something crazy like that. But
That'd be rad.
this this was fun, man. Well, let's wrap this thing up. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you? Your Instagram or YouTube. You mentioned a podcast. Let them know where they can find you, and I'll make sure to put notes for everything in the or links to everything in the show notes.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. So everybody used to know me as the stunt Matt when I used to work on movies, but I recently changed all my stuff just to my name. It's Matt, M-A-T-T. Last name's Rege, R-E-G-E. It's not Rege, it's not Rege, it's Rege for anybody asking because they're going to be confused about it. I've heard them all. So you could just type my name in Google. You'll watch all my movie stuff pop up, my IMDb, anything, my Instagram, Facebook, everything is my TikTok, everything's under Matt Rege. And then my podcast, I have like 5 episodes. I like to just interview anybody on the outdoors. So all my buddies that are professional dirt bike riders, racers, we just get on there and just chat it up. I'm going to do some podcasts in hunting camp, just kind of after the hunt.
Perfect.
Kind of thing. I got a mobile setup now. So
that's the best place to do a podcast. We talked about it before the podcast. Like that's what I'm trying to get myself set up for, is like go into hunting camps and start to record some stories there. Cause that's where the best ones are. And that might be because they're the farthest from the truth.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always funny getting your buddies a little drunk and they start telling the most crazy stories. And then this weekend I got a big archery shoot up in Big Bear, California. There's gonna be like 500 shooters. So I'm gonna do a couple podcasts up there, just kind of whoever shows up could jump on kind of thing. So that podcast is the Outdoor Athlete Podcast, because that's kind of my new branding now. But that's also on my main channel, just at Matt Rege on YouTube and Spotify and literally anywhere else you could find it. And I'm learning, so it's not too good, but it got some crazy stories on there. So go check it out if you want.
Awesome, man. I will check it out. Cool.
Yeah.
One more question before we wrap up. What is
Sure.
do you have anything from being a stuntman that like we would know? Like what's something that you're proud of as far as your stuntman stuff?
Yeah, so I worked on the History Channel for 2 years consecutively. So I was always doing like the Western stunts, like high falls and fire burns and wagon crashes and stuff like that. So pretty prestigiously on the History Channel, which was pretty fun. But the last feature film I did in 2014 was called The Night Crew, which everybody should check it out. Like I absolutely love the storyline, which is cool because when I was filming it, I didn't know the storyline. And then once I watched it, I go, oh, okay, it kind of makes sense kind of thing.
Yeah.
That one is with Danny Trejo. I'm sure you know who he is from Machete.
Oh, yeah.
Him, Luke Goss, Bokeem Woodbine, Jason Mewes from Jay and Silent Bob. It's actually absolutely stat cast. That was my main feature film. But now my main job, we just do a lot of YouTube stuff. So one of my best friends is, we have the most viewed video on TikTok of 2019.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so it's called Elephant Toothpaste with David Dobrik. We just do a lot of science type stuff, and anytime there's dangerous stuff like stunts and dirt bikes and all that stuff, that's kind of what I do for the channel. So he's the host of the Netflix show Blown Away. So
okay.
That's what I do now. I just slowly work on YouTube stuff. I retired from the movies in 2014 because it sucked. And it's just fun filming random YouTube videos. So if anyone wants to check it out, I'm always posting what we're doing. And if there's anybody that could jump on a shoot, I'll post it on there. And we usually welcome anybody to come kind of hang out with us and film with us. It's pretty fun.
Cool, man. Well, Matt, that's awesome, man. It was nice to meet you. You have some amazing stories. I'm excited to keep following you and see where you go. Because you obviously, some people just take to hunting. It sounds to me like you're one of those folks that just like has that instinct. And so I'm excited to see, what you do with it in the future, man. Because you're still just a young pup as far as hunters are concerned. People do it their whole lives and don't see half the action that you've seen. So
yeah, I wish I would have started earlier, but I've been done pretty decent lately, and I'm super stoked for your podcast, man. Like, luckily, I was just typing in Spotify one day, and I was like, hunting podcast, yours popped up, and I just fell in love with it. Like, hunting stories are so cool. Like, I love it.
I'm glad that it's showing up. I wasn't sure if we were getting anywhere, and people typed in hunting into those. If you're listening, make sure you review us
and 5-star.
Give us some stars. Yeah, 5-star it, so that we actually have other folks like Matt reach out to us because they found our podcast randomly and can tell us some more crazy stories, because that's what it's all
man,
about.
I'm stoked for it. I'm gonna be listening to it all day tomorrow, pretty much. Anytime I'm driving, I'm listening to it. So keep the content coming, and I'm stoked for you, man. And hopefully we do this again after season, maybe.
Yeah, sounds good, man. I'm sign me up, brother.
Heck yeah.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
All right, guys, that's it. Another couple stories in the books. I want to thank Matt, of course, for coming on the podcast, guys. I put links to all of his stuff in the show notes, so please go check him out. What he's doing is pretty cool. He's obviously a very talented hunter, despite being very new himself. But Matt, thank you again, man. Some crazy stories. Some didn't end the way that I wanted them to. Others were just absolutely ridiculous. But I appreciate you sharing with us, because I had a lot of fun talking with you. Again, now for you listeners, get out there and share the podcast, guys. Give us a review, 1 star, 5 stars. I don't care. Give us some stars, and maybe a few comments on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever you're listening on. please do that for us and share it with them. Hopefully we can get more people reaching out like Matt that have some crazy stories and are willing to share, and we can put together some more great episodes. That's it, guys. Thank you again for tuning in. I really do appreciate all of you, especially you, of course, for coming on and sharing your stories. But that's it, guys. Get out there and make some stories of your own. Thank you.